My name is Justin Ross, and I'm going to teach you how to play my favorite backyard game, Kubb. K-U-B-B, Kubb. Not cube, not Kubb, Kubb. From what I understand, Kubb is an ancient game played by Vikings after conquering a village. They would take the femurs and skulls of their victims and play Kubb. I'm going to tell you how I play the game. There's a few different variations, but this is how I play. The aim of the game is to knock the king over after wiping out your opponent's back row. Now, if you knock over the king before you knock over your opponent's entire back row, you lose the game automatically. It's like sinking the 8-ball too early. To play Kubb, you're going to need 10 skulls, 6 femurs, and a king. Kubb can be played by as few as 2 people or as many as you have at your party. You can have even number teams, odd number teams, and individuals can throw as much or as little as they like. I've invited April over to play Kubb with me today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, what do you want your team name to be?
I'm thinking Bone Crushers.
Nice. All right, my team name is the Pillagers. April and the Bone Crushers will set up their 5 skulls as their back row, and I'll do the same. The king is placed in the middle. The pitch can be as large or as small as you want, depending on how difficult you want the game to be. To determine who goes first, each team will throw 1 femur towards the king. The team that lands closest to the king without touching it gets to throw first. Since the Bone Crushers won the toss, April will throw first and try and knock over as many skulls as possible. The way you throw the femurs is important. You have to throw them underhand, end over end. No sidearm, no overhand, and no helicoptering. Once the Bone Crushers have thrown all their femurs, it's now the Pillagers' turn. If the Bone Crushers knock over a skull, it's now thrown by the Pillagers back into the Bone Crushers' side of the court. Now it's acting as a defensive player for the Bone Crushers. Now the way you throw the skulls is underhand too, but not necessarily end over end. The skull must land in bounds, and the way I play is by using gentleman's rules of what's in bounds. You know, not past the back row, not short of the king, and inbounds on the left and right. Now if it goes out of bounds, the Bone Crushers can place the skull anywhere on their side of the pitch that they want within 1 femur's length of the king. Remember, you don't want to knock the king over too early. Now the Bone Crushers will set the skulls up, and the Pillagers will have to knock over these skulls before attacking the Bone Crushers' back row. Now sometimes you'll accidentally knock over a skull on the back row while attacking a field skull, and it'll count if you go ahead and knock over all the other field skulls that are on the pitch. But if you fail to knock over all the field skulls, the back row skull needs to be set back up. If the Pillagers fail to knock over all of the field skulls, the Bone Crushers are going to get to throw their femurs from the skull that's closest to the king, giving them quite the advantage. Now the tide can turn quickly. Make sure that the skulls are always thrown from behind the back line though. You're going to be able to move up to throw the femurs, but the skulls are always thrown from the back line. The game continues in this way back and forth until one team's entire row has been knocked over and the opponent is challenging the king. When it's time to shoot for the king, you need to move back to where the back row was to throw your femurs. When you knock over the king, game over. Here's a couple of points on strategy. When you're throwing the field skulls into your opponent's pitch, you want to think about where you're going to put it. If you put the skull deep into their pitch, it's going to be harder for you to knock them over, but then they don't get to move as close if you fail to do so. If you throw the field skulls shallow, you're going to be able to knock them over easier, but should you fail to do so, they're going to be right up on you. Let's say that you're adding skulls into your opponent's field, but there was still skulls left over from the round before. You can take aim at those field skulls with your skull, and if you knock it over, those skulls are then stacked on top of each other, making for an easy target and the ability to knock over multiple skulls with just 1 femur. You may want to cluster your field skulls. This can make it easier to knock over field skulls with just 1 femur or accidentally knocking over a field skull that you weren't even aiming for. Now go out there and crush some skulls.